Okay, there we go. Sorry everyone for that. So just to begin, we wanted to take some time to just kind of introduce some of the basic scams that we're seeing a lot of with COVID-19. So just some things to be aware of. Charity scams. I mean, this is honestly something you should always be aware of, but especially during disasters, there will be fake charities or people posing as a legitimate charity trying to get money by advertising, saying, hey, donate, please give this relief. Not saying you shouldn't ever help a charity, but the point is that you need to research and make sure that you're actually giving to the source that they say that you're giving it to, and that it's a legitimate charity. So for example, you don't want to give to a company claiming to be Underground Railroad if it's not the Underground Railroad, okay? And so you want to make sure that you look up, do your homework, and see which charities are the ones that are providing the most relief out there and not just pocketing a lot of the money coming in, or a scam that's just pocketing it all. There are also stimulus check scams that have been out there. Some of you may have seen this already, but where somebody contacts you or someone you know and says, hey, you got a stimulus check, we need you to pay these fees for having received that. That's not legitimate. Please know that there are no fees that you have to pay just because you receive a stimulus check, okay? Also, people trying to pose as your bank or another bank or as the FDIC. So that's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. They're the ones that insure banks. And the idea is that they're there trying to say, hey, we're this big, company, you can trust us, we need to verify your information. And they'll steal your identity from that and start to benefit, usually financially, using your information at your cost. So you just want to be careful of that. Anytime you have someone contact you, whether it's your bank or someone else, if they contact you and ask for your social security number or anything that's personal identifying information, you've got to be wary of that. Because usually, never is your bank going to call and ask for your social. They'll ask for it if you're calling them, but if they're not going to call you and ask. So anytime you have somebody contact you like that, hang up, call the person they claim they're going to be, and verify, and they're going to tell you, no, we didn't call. Okay. Also, it may be somebody, pretending to be a person in need. Oh, we've had this emergency. We've got all of these thousands of dollars of bills with COVID-19. If you don't know them, then you want to be really, really careful giving your money away, because it could be a scam. I mean, that's one thing with the internet, is it makes it a lot easier that people can publicize something that is completely false. And so you just want to be careful of that, and that you don't donate money to somebody just because they say they're a person in need. Look into it, see what the situation is as much as possible, and verify that it's a legitimate situation. And honestly, it's safest to just make sure that it's somebody you know, okay? And then that way you can verify, because if it's somebody you know, you can contact them. Also, testing, vaccines. As far as I've heard, there's no vaccine out there, and they're not going to knock on your door offering it, okay? They're also not going to be offering it on Amazon. So the thing you want to be careful of is making sure that if somebody's contacting you about medical and they've knocked on your door, they've called you up and it's not related to anything. I mean, obviously, if you've gone to the doctors and you've had a COVID test, or you've been in contact with your doctor and they call you with some information, I mean, if they ask for any personal information, hang up and call your doctor. But especially if you haven't even had contact with your doctor or a medical professional recently and they're calling you about this, it's probably a scam. So please just be wary of that. There are a lot of other scams out there, not just COVID specific, but with COVID-19, we just wanted to make sure that we covered those specifically up front. Now, sorry, just a moment to get this to the next slide. So things to help you spot a scam. If they're asking for money or they're asking for your personal info, beware. Again, if somebody's contacting you and asking for that information, it's going to be a scammer. We used to have door-to-door salesmen, or sorry, telephone salesmen who would call and ask for that kind of information to sell you things, but scamming has completely destroyed that. So just, if they're contacting you and asking for your information, leave it, okay? Don't give them any of that, especially with asking for money. If they're asking you for a wire or a reloadable or prepaid card or gift card, or to put money on one of those things, then it's a scam, because the thing is that those are as good as cash. Once you put the money on there, it's gone. There's not really anything that can be done, and it's just gone. So you've got to be careful of that. Even if somebody you know is asking for money, make sure this is a legitimate thing. You know, if they're asking you to put money on one of these things, because there's no way to track or get that money back. Also, again, pretending to be someone you know. There have been people contacting individuals saying, hey, I'm a military member, I've experienced this tragedy, please send me this money. Or even pretending to be a distant relative saying, hey, you're my third cousin or your great-great-grandson. You know, that's a little bit more for an older generation that'll work on. I mean, anybody calls me and says that they're my great-great-grandchild, I'm not going to believe them. But the point is that you've got to be careful and make sure you know who you're talking to. And if they start asking for personal information or for money, you need to get off the phone. And if you're concerned about it, try to contact who they said they were. And that way you can see, you know, if it's actually a legitimate thing, but it's not going to be, okay? And then unsolicited services such as the COVID home test doesn't exist. Miracle cures, doctors sent me, you know, again, we kind of already talked about that, but the idea is unsolicited services, something you didn't even ask for. You know, you've got to be careful of that, especially if they're upfront asking you for information that they can use to take money out of your account or so forth. Okay. And then also just another set of red flags. Anytime it sounds too good to be true, where it says same thing like you've won, or you have to pay for shipping a prize that's a free gift, it's going to be a scam. Okay. You've been selected, you know, just these things that it's too good to be true. If it is too good to be, if it sounds too good to be true, it's going to be too good to be true. I mean, there's the sure investment that's only going to gain, not going to lose. That's not how investments work. You know, you've won a prize, it's free, they're not going to charge you to ship it to you. Okay. My mom got a call several years ago, somebody saying, hey, we've got a car on your way, you've won. She hadn't entered anything, she hadn't done anything to win this car, and they just needed her to, you know, wire them a couple $1,000s for shipping. She had some fun with it, but she knew it was a hoax from the beginning. But that's the idea, is you need, even if you do decide to waste time on them, to waste their time, don't ever give them information. And if there's a risk that you might actually start to believe them, just get off the phone, okay? Get off the phone, close the door if they're knocking at your door, asking for information. Just, you've got to be careful. So if it sounds too good to be true, it is, okay? And that's sadly when people are especially during a crisis, we're a little bit more gullible. No offense to anybody. I mean, it's just part of our nature, but we've got to be more careful, okay? So what do you do? Again, end the interaction. Stop talking to them, or don't interact if it's an email that's come into your inbox claiming you've won something or asking you for your information to charge you or whatnot. Just end the contact, or don't start it. Investigate, especially if you're concerned that it, you know, might actually be your bank. Just investigate. Contact the bank. You can look up their policies online to see if they would ask you about things like that, and, you know, find out what the situation actually is. And a lot of the time you're going to find that it is a scam. Even if you just don't feel comfortable, end the conversation. A salesman should never make you uncomfortable. And if you're uncomfortable working with them, end it, because you don't want to risk that it is a scam, that it is something that you're not, that is going to be detrimental and cost you money that you can't afford, okay? So just be careful, and even if you don't feel comfortable, end the conversation. And again, you can go back and investigate if you're worried about that. You can also go to the website below, which I'm actually going to throw in the chat some information, but it's just some links to, if you want to report it, or sorry, if you see a scam, please report it. That way we can keep track of these things better. It's the government and other organizations try to keep track of this to help keep all up to date so that we can be careful. But you can also sign up for scam alerts to help you, get alerted of anything new that's coming out, just so that you can keep your eyes open to keep you and your family and your finances safe. And then just some general, even just for protecting against identity theft information, make sure that you protect your personal information. Shred it if it's, no longer needed. If it is a document that you need, don't keep it out in public. Don't keep it on your counter. If it's got your social on it, you don't want somebody coming to visit who says, who can see your social on your counter, okay? You want to be careful of that. Also, use complex passwords and don't use the same password on everything. Be careful accessing private information, even through your bank, using public Wi-Fi. I mean, it is more protected because, it's encrypted and the bank has that HTTPS, but if you're, if you're on public Wi-Fi, it can be easier, especially since that usually means that it could be somebody looking over your shoulder. And I'm not sure why we've lost the slideshow. Mackenzie, you had that. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then again, just be careful in public places. Also, a credit card or charging your debit as a credit. Those are two ways that, for example, Master, Visa, either of those options, debit as credit or charging as a credit, it delays the charge so that they can, assess, try to identify if something is an unusual occurrence based on your activity with a card. For example, my parents had such a situation where they had a charge in a different state, and it was because of, identity theft. So just be careful of that. And then, sorry guys, I am wrapping up. We just need to get to that next slide. Can you switch it, Mackenzie? Thank you. Oh, and the last thing, I've talked about these. If you're on a website, just look for that HTTPS, that S for secure, when you're on that website, to make sure before you put any personal information or financial information on it. Also, the lock symbol is another way to see that. If it's shortening and not showing you the HTTPS, you should still be able to click up there and see it. But those are ways to show that the website is secure and going to protect your information. And then the next slide is just for recording. Anybody who doesn't get to see it in the chat, this is just the resources that I just posted for you to be able to report or get alerts and just to look up more information regarding scams, because we could spend a lot of time talking about it. So I'm going to move it on to you, Mackenzie. We can't hear you, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the facts and tips that you gave us in regards to scams. So now we're going to talk specifically about smart shopping. Here, I'll even let you guys see the video. Hi from my guest bedroom. We love these pandemic times and the interesting situations that it finds ourselves in. So I'm going to speak specifically about smart shopping, but in terms of groceries and the things that we might have in terms of concerns when it comes to grocery shopping and how to best manage that in terms of our personal finances. So a common question that I get from clients is, how much should I be spending on food, or how much should I be spending on my groceries? And I just want to say right off the bat that it's really important to remember specifically that your monthly food budget is going to vary from individual to individual and household to household. The main reasoning being because maybe you have some dietary restrictions, maybe you're a family of 8 versus a family of 2, or maybe you're in a single household. The idea is that it's going to be different. But here are a couple of resources or thoughts that you can consider when it comes to how much should I be actually spending. So number one, you really do need to consider auditing how much you're currently spending. So it's really hard to determine how much you should be spending if you don't know how much you're actually already spending. So it's important to find out how much you are, and ways that you can do that would vary, whether that's keeping receipts or whether that's looking at a bank statement from all the times that you have gone grocery shopping. These are both ideas as to ways in which you can audit that food spending and how much you're currently already doing so. Our budget on our website, if you ever want to go and download it at faircredit.org, our individual budget recommends that we spend 16% or less on food, and this actually includes eating out. So 16% of your after-tax monthly income to not be or to be designated towards food. The USDA, so U.S. Department of Agriculture, gives a food plan resource, and they actually update that monthly. So this one here that I have on this slide is the May calculation. The reason I really like this food resource is it gives the estimated amount broken down by 4 different food plan categories. And those 4 different food categories are thrifty, low cost, moderate cost, and liberal. So you can actually go in and based off of average age as well as household, you can kind of see and determine what, if you're in line with what the USDA is recommending in regards to that. But again, remember that food is an individual and household circumstance. And so just because you may not be able to follow the recommendation does not mean that you're doing anything wrong. You might just want to consider doing a couple of things that might help you to get more into in line with the same budget that they give. Okay, so I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in regards to purchasing groceries versus eating out. I think that, at least for me, sometimes the idea of going grocery shopping, especially in this pandemic, I do kind of feel like this guy in the cart, like, what am I supposed to eat? Ramen? But the idea is it's important for us to really be able to do our best to limit the amount in which we eat out. Why? Mainly because of the expense that it can be to us. So here are some suggestions or ideas on the purchasing groceries versus eating out. It's important for us to find out how much we feel like we're eating out and try to reduce that amount or the frequency. Utilize mail-in coupons that you might receive for local grocery fast food joints. Plan quick eats on your grocery list. So sure, I mean, it's not the healthiest thing, but have a couple of Red Baron pizzas in your freezer for the nights that you don't want to cook. And when they were on sale, then you have those handy. Host work potlucks instead of lunch dates, instead of going out to lunch with coworkers. Not that we're probably doing that right now with the pandemic, but try to host work potlucks or things that are a little bit more economical and help us to save money. And then last but not least, take leftovers or eat leftovers for lunch. That will help you to not waste the food that you possibly had made the night before or the 2 nights before. All right, so 4 ways to save on groceries. Here are my 4 tips. The first one being to shop the grocery ad. I know this is really silly, but one of my favorite things about becoming a homeowner last year was getting the local mail-in ads to my mailbox. Being a renter for so long, I didn't have the option or I wasn't able to receive the ads and the coupons that came. So if you find yourself actually in that situation, you can download the application on the Google Play or Apple Store called Flip, F-L-I-P-P, and that will actually give you access to the weekly ads through, to the stores near you. But if you do receive them in the mail, you can always look at them through that. One key thing to remember when it comes to grocery shopping as well, especially the ads, is look for something called a loss leader. Now you might say, what is a loss leader? I have it here defined. It's a product sold at loss to attract customers. And grocery stores do this quite frequently. As you start to look at the ads more often, you're going to find what those loss leaders are, because you'll become familiar with what is the best price for butter, what is the best price for certain produce, and that will help you to be able to determine what is the best bang for your buck. Second tip would be to prepare a shopping list in advance. So make sure that you take a list with you. If you're going physically into the store, so that you can try not to stray away from your list, and try to only shop 1 to 2 weeks worth at a time. Sometimes buying more than that can produce unnecessary demand for the stores and create temporary shortages, or it can also help us to limit the waste in which we're collecting if we go and buy too much before it gets bad before you use it all. The third tip was be to meal plan. Typically, the easiest thing that I do when I'm trying to meal plan is I try to plan meals based off of the grocery ad. So if I see that certain meats are on sale, or if I see a certain produce or pasta or whatever it might be, I try to plan my meals according to the things that are on sale. In addition, I try to make sure I check my fridge and my pantry to use up the items or to see what I already have that could help to add into the meals in which I could potentially make. The last tip in terms of the shopping is to consider doing grocery pickup, especially right now in terms of the pandemic. There's a lot of local grocery stores that are doing free pickup. And that way you're always going to stick to your shopping list because you pre-prepared that what you're trying to purchase. A lot of them also will give you substitutes for items that are out of stock at no additional cost. So if you had to do a different brand, if they had to replace it with a different brand, they will still give you the cost of that possibly generic brand, but give you the brand that was in stock. Try not to shop hungry. We always buy more when we are hungry. And then consider using store and rebate apps such as Ibotta, Fetch Rewards, Checkout 51. These are all apps that I have used and find very helpful. And it's easier to go and look at these apps and consider what you could potentially purchase from these apps that have rebates than going back. So what I mean by that is plan what's on those coupons and buy them and then upload the receipt afterward. It's a little bit easier that way than seeing if anything you bought is on those applications. All right, here are just 4 additional resources I wanted to give you. The first one being to apply for free or reduced lunch applications through the school district if you're during the school year for your kiddos. That will help cut the grocery budget and be helpful to you. Eligible for WIC or SNAP, you can apply at jobs.utah.gov, or if you're curious if you are eligible for these government assistance, this is definitely the jobs.utah.gov is a place to go and look for that. Right now, there is a summer nutrition program going on that provides free meals and snacks to kids under the age of 18 when school's not in session. If you are interested in this program, it does not, there is no income limitation, so definitely take advantage of that, and that would help you to cut your costs during this pandemic for food as well. Text food to 877-877 and it will give you a list of all the pickup sites near you. I did that to test it out for me, and it gave me a long list with multiple schools and community centers that were near me for that program. And then last but not least, I've put here an Eat Well on a $4 a day downloadable free PDF cookbook that was in conjunction or posted on the Utah's, I'm trying to remember the Utah No Hungry program. I'm trying to remember what the nonprofit is called, but they had this on their website and I really thought it was a great resource. And you can find that downloadable cookbook here. And I have actually tried some of the meals and they're pretty tasty. So those are some additional resources. Hope this was helpful to you. I'm going to now turn the time over to my colleague, Talon, and he is going to talk a little bit more about specific to crisis budgeting and then the savings how we can try to save still in these difficult times.
Perfect. Thanks, Mackenzie. I'm going to really play off of some of the things that you shared. And yeah, just go from there. So going to just talk a little bit about crisis budgeting and savings. Super important. Hopefully this works out. There we go. So really, saving and budgeting go hand in hand um, when it comes to talking about creating a budget, or if I say budget or spending plan, I mean the same thing. But essentially, the two are super important, and we'll talk about ways where we can even get that money, right? Because we may have a desire to save, but where do we even get that money to save, right? So here's a few ideas for you to consider, uh, just so you can find that extra money. So a lot of us receive the stimulus checks or even are getting hazardous bonus pay with some of the different jobs we work at. Use that money as a way to save up for, if the unhappy circumstance that you lose your job, or um, a family member does get sick, right? You have that safety cushion. So using that extra income as a way to build up your little nest of money. Um, Sorry, someone's drawing on the screen. Anyway, like Mackenzie shared, look for deals, use coupons. This doesn't apply just for groceries. Use it for really anything. Like, for example, the other week I had to get my car registered, and there's a coupon book and for a place that I've never been to. And so was able to use that coupon, save tons of money on getting my car registered. So looking for that. This next one, make savings automatic. So important. It's super easy to set up with your bank or credit union, or even at your job. Talk with your HR representative to get it set up. But essentially how that works in your favor is, if you don't notice the money leaving, you're not going to think about it, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal, right? We often have that mentality for other things, which often are negative, but use that to your advantage, right? So if that money's out of sight, out of mind, just building up, and you go and look in your bank account and see you have all this money, it's super easy to save that way. It's still spring, technically, and so lots of spring cleaning happening. Sell some of those unwanted goods or items that you don't need. Many of you have plenty of time on your hands, so go through what you don't actually need and see if you can't make some money off of it. Now is also a time when lots of people are moving. Even though there is still this pandemic going on, people are moving, they're trying to still live normal lives and need new furniture or different things like that. So look to sell some of those items. People might be there to buy them. Cut back spending in certain areas. If it's starting to get hotter, so it may be tempting to turn down the thermostat lower and lower, but ways to cut back on your spending and put that money towards savings is by not turning the thermostat as far down, right? If it's closer to what the temperature is outside, the cost difference is going to be different there. You'll be able to save money. Just a few more examples to consider. Maybe. There we go. We'll talk about it here in the next slide, but the step down principle is huge. Do some comparison shopping, though, when you're looking to buy stuff. I'll go back to Mackenzie's example, talking about grocery shopping. Compare different items at the store. Look for generic versus the regular name brand. And if you can, buy in bulk if it will save you money. But don't go overboard and let that food go to waste or whatever it may be that you're buying in bulk, and that you'll actually use it. Look to buy used items, just like what we talked about on the last slide. People are selling some stuff to make money, but if an item's in good repair and looks to be clean and usable, why not buy it, right? Versus spending extra money on something brand new. Shop with a list, we already kind of covered that, and as well as the online shopping. Um, especially when it comes to grocery shopping, look to see how you can't save some money there. And then, of course, that last link there, utahsaves.org. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat afterwards. But there's different resources and tips there that if you want more information than what I could provide today, that you can look at. Okay, so as I promised, step down principle. Here is a way that you can still have things that you want, but maybe at a reduced price. So again, just talking about food, let's see how we can't save some money, but just forewarning, with each step down, the price may be reduced, but the opportunity cost rises. So that's important to consider. And you'll see that as we go through. So the first example is ordering food delivery, right? It's kind of scary to go outside. Lots of dangers out there, especially with the virus going around. So ordering food delivery is a good, safe option, but it costs extra money, right? You have the price of the food plus an average of $3 to $9 of a delivery fee. So that gets pretty pricey. But let's say you still want to go out, it's Friday night, you still want to have a nice meal from a restaurant. Instead of ordering delivery, go in and pick it up yourself. So you'll see that you start to save money, except for, like transportation costs. But the opportunity cost goes up, right? You're getting out into the open a little bit more. You can have more exposure, but you can be saving some money. Another step down is grocery pickup. So it's just the cost of the minimum. Sometimes there is a fee, but like Mackenzie said earlier, there's a lot of places that aren't charging fees right now for it. But that's also a way to save money on your food costs. And then one step down is from that is actually going out and braving the stores yourselves. If there are fees associated with grocery pickup or that sort of thing, but braving the stores on your own will save you lots of money, especially if you're able to make those home cooked meals. You can save money that way and put it towards your goals, right? So here's just a few different types of budgeting methods. Won't spend up too much time on these, but just some big ones to mention there on that last one. There's so many different online apps now that you can use to budget. What we talked about so far today is great, but if you don't have a plan for what to do with your money, then it may be a waste of your time, right? So look for ways to plan out where your money's going. How much are you going to put towards savings? How much are you going to put towards food? You need to come up with a plan, and that's where budgeting comes in. So some big ones to look at. Mint is a good one. YNAB, or You Need a Budget, is also good. Good Budget, Clarity Money. But as said earlier, a good place to go is our website. And under the services and budgeting, you can find a link to our budget. And it's great. It's very user-friendly. And where those numbers came from earlier, those recommendations like Mackenzie talked about, the 16%, you can see some other recommendations for housing, for transportation, for other categories. And it's a good way to gauge where you're at with your spending. And so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but I'm going to turn the time over to Itzel to go over some additional stuff.
Thanks, Talon, so much for the intro there. Oops, let me go back a little bit. Oh. Oops. There we go. Okay. So today we'll be talking a little bit about how to communicate with your creditors, especially during a pandemic, because I know that talking to your creditors can be kind of stressful and sometimes even intimidating. So I have a few tips for you that you can use to relieve some of that stress and frustration and hopefully create a smooth interaction with your creditors. So before we dive into these tips, the first thing you'll want to do is some research on what your creditor's policy is regarding COVID. A lot of businesses have closed down their lobbies, so they can't do any face-to-face interactions due to the virus. So I recommend, recommend you visit their website or call before you go in to their office or lobby, just because they might, have you go back and call from your home, or just tell you, we can't see you in person. So definitely call before you go in, and they might tell you, hey, you have to schedule an appointment over the phone before we go, before you can come in and see us in person, or they might just tell you, hey, we don't have any face-to-face interactions right now, so doing it over the phone is going to be best. I learned this the hard way about a month and a half ago. I took my cousin to America First to apply for a secured credit card, and they told me to do it over or through their website because it was faster, easier, and they didn't have a bank manager on the spot because of coronavirus. So definitely call beforehand. You can also check your emails or even your mail to see if you've received any information from them regarding COVID. A lot of businesses have done that at the beginning of the pandemic, where they state what their policy is moving forward until things get better. So definitely look through your emails to see if you have any information from them, as well as your mail. This will definitely save you time and money on gas or transportation fees. So now that we've talked about doing some research before calling your creditors, the first thing you'll want to have ready is your personal documentation. So this includes any account names, account numbers, any identification information like your driver's license or ID, and any bills or letters from your creditors that you'd like to discuss. This just helps you avoid, putting them on hold if you're on the phone and rummaging through your files to look for this information, or even if it's in person, having to look through your purse or bag or wallet. And we'll just allow you to be ready and focused when you do call. And then it's also helpful to have, or to be in an area where there's no distractions, so you can focus on the call. The second thing you want to do is to keep track of who you talk to, especially if you're calling. So when you call a creditor, sometimes you have to be transferred to different departments to find the right person to talk to who can help you. So it's good to keep track of who you talk to, when you talk to them, and then the date and time. So this again helps so that if you have to call that person again, you already have their number ready. Or if you receive poor customer service, you can, jot down their name and then report them to management. Once you have reached the person you need to talk to, or the right person, make sure you take their name as well, and their contact information. So again, when you call back, if you need to, you can avoid the chain of command and just call them directly in the future. Alrighty, so number 3, be transparent about your situation. So whether it's about missing a payment or a late payment, lowering your APR, collections, etc., letting your creditors know why you are struggling could really help them better understand your situation and possibly provide resources to help you, right? It's also helpful to contact them as soon as you know you're in trouble, or as soon as you know you won't be able to cover next month's payment. And then number 4 kind of goes along with number 3. Once you've kind of, told your creditors what's going on, don't be afraid to ask for help. For the most part, your creditors are there to help you, especially if you communicate with them. And most creditors have their own programs for clients who are in need, especially now during this pandemic. They might be able to offer you 0% on your accounts, or maybe even allow you to skip a month with no penalty, because a lot of people have lost their jobs during this pandemic. So they might be more understanding and be willing to help you any way that they can. And if they can't help you, they might have resources for other organizations that can, like us. So last but not least, Fair Credit is here for you, okay? So whether it's setting up a conference call with your creditors, because I know even after I've given you these tips, it can still be a really intimidating process. So we're more than happy to set up a conference call with them and be moral support, right? Or ask those questions that you might not know how to or be able to, right? And like Ellen said at the beginning, we can help with pulling your credit report, creating a plan to manage your debts, or even going through a budget with you. We're always more than happy to help. So please don't hesitate to contact us. So here are just, like I said, a few quick tips that I give you, and that's it for me. So I'm going to transfer it over to Heather to talk a little bit about our social media and start our Q&A. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Itzel. I really appreciate that. Yes, we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we're here to offer, continue to offer financial services through those platforms in the ways that we can. We want to connect with you. We want to make sure that we send out relevant information for you. So please feel free to reach out on those platforms, connect with us there. We send out regular, probably 5, 6, 7 times a week. We send out additional information that might be helpful for you to navigate whatever you might be navigating in your financial circumstances. We try to run the gamut. We also let you know about events and things like this wonderful event that we've got here. So feel free to email us, follow us, and we'll keep in touch with you. But we would like to open it up to additional questions. We have had at least one question so far that was regarding selling online, selling household items online. And it looks like the chat has been a wonderful place to gain additional information, and the suggestions so far have been to do KSL, Facebook Marketplace, Nextdoor have all been noted as places to do that have low cost shipping. And then we also have a question in with, do we help with credit report repair? So I'm going to hand that off to one of our financial counselors to answer that question.
I can answer. This is Ellen. Or if somebody else wants to jump in, so credit repair is something that typically you have to pay for. It's not a service that we offer at Fair Credit. I would throw extra caution if you're looking for specifically credit repair, because there are a lot of bad players out there. Basically organizations that will take your money and promise to repair your credit. And really the best way to repair your credit is by, understanding what's on your credit report and paying down your debts, moving positive behavior in the future. So, we absolutely do free credit counseling. I would suggest reaching out to us, and we can set up an appointment to look over your credit report and make some suggestions. There's some programs out there that may help depending on what the person's specific situation is. I don't know. Does any of the counselors want to chime in here? I think I may have covered it, but.
I mean, we can happily look over a credit report with you, take a look and see what is on your report, maybe offer some different avenues, just help educate you on what your options are, and just so you're aware of what paths you can decide and help coach you along the way. That's really what our biggest impact can be, is helping coach you, educate you on what's out there, kind of like what we're doing today, and just helping you understand so you can be an agent for yourself to know what can you do with your credit, or how to save or budget, those types of things.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to hop on there, Talon, especially since the next question is right up my alley. But the thing with credit repair is we can also talk to you about, how to go about the process to get something fixed on your credit report if there's an error, which you can do for, yourself in 15 minutes on the website of the credit reporting agencies. But you do have to be careful, because if you're trying to remove something that's accurate, then one, they can validate that and it'll show on your credit report that you disputed it. But technically it's illegal to, alter true financial information. The next question, though, just to jump on that, is how long do individuals save in the IDA program? So that's up my alley, because I am the IDA specialist. And it's a little bit of a tricky question right now, So currently we have a 3-to-1 match with our IDA program, and the 3-to-1 match ends in, with the last month being February 2021, just because of how the funding is working out with that. And so February 2021 is the last month that people can save, and we do, with this current funding, have a minimum savings agreement for 6 months. So you can save anywhere from 6 months through February 2021, which, I mean, gives us, I believe, about 9 months now. And so hopefully that answers your question, but that's where it's at now. Where it'll be at after, with different funding, it won't probably be a 3-to-1 match, but there are enough things we're not entirely sure about yet for beyond that point, but that's where it is now.
Are there any other questions out there? Well, Ellen, not seeing any, I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We're hoping to do this every month, and our topics will change, I think, based on what we see as important. We've been seeing a lot of buzz about scams and hearing feedback from clients, so we felt like that was really important right now during this pandemic. Please fill out our survey and let us know what topics might be helpful to you in the future, or someone reach out to us if you need help, or if you know someone that needs help. But again, thank you all for coming, and we'll be in touch.
Ellen, okay. Never mind, you saw it. So I'll just say it just really quick while we wrap up. The question of asking for the request of the recording is just info@faircredit.org. Thanks, everybody.